this whole process. He started a little web page called the Fernandina Beach Network and asked me to be one of the admins. And then when he was elected, he said he better not do it at all anymore because it was a conflict. So he asked me to take more of a role in that. And then later on, he approached me and asked me if I would consider joining him up here, and that started this whole process on. So we were friends before that. We've been friendly since then because we can't, because of Sunshine, be friends during this. We haven't had a chance to talk. So the one good thing about this is we can renew that friendship again and look forward to speaking to you as many times as we can. So listen, I want to thank you for everything. You did a fantastic job as a mayor. You're a great example, and wish you luck. Good job, man.
Everyone said you better get up there and you can't come back and sit down again. So, Vice Mayor Miller, Mayor-elect, thank you. I think something everyone forgets when you come into this is that even if you don't agree with the politics or the positions people have, every one of us thinks of the city first, and we want good things for the city. You know, it was a little bit emotional the first time I came through, but I grew up here and the town means a lot to me. So I hope I can take a few minutes and everyone will have a little patience. I want to say thank you to some of the people that were part of the last 3 years. First, seems like a long 3 years sometimes when I miss my family, but sometimes it's very short because there's so many things you hope to do when you came in, and there's just not enough time for one commission. And wanted to mention some of the things that happened while I was here that I was honored to be a small part of. First, I was very pleased to see the library finished. Nonprofits do so much work for the island, and I think we're lucky to have so many people that want to give back. Second, I was happy to see Bonhams come and a chance to get some good publicity for the golf course. Was pleased with some of the things that the outgoing city manager Garrity did to make that happen very quickly behind the scenes. Very pleased with the accommodation at the airport, and pleased with golf management company Billy Casper. I'm pleased to see the purchase of North Front Street lot going forward. You know, I remember years ago I read, and I think the city clerk sending you a file on the 1996 ATM study. And there's a feasibility study showing alternate locations and arrangements for the marina, but some of that I think has to do with moving north, or the idea that the water flow is never going to be right the way the marina is situated. So I'm pleased to see the commission considering that, and hopefully that'll happen. Airport terminal building is something we talked about when I first came in office before I was mayor, and it took 3 years to get to a point that we actually have a date. I think everyone's going to be pleased because that's part of the economic gateway to the island. It's going to make a huge difference. It may seem like a small thing, but I think commissions and governments don't always think about nonprofits. The Council on Aging at one point dramatically lost a dramatic amount of funding from the commission. I think whenever you can get a multiple benefit by contributing, that's a big deal. When you can get a line item contribution, if you look at the multiple benefit from matching money and volunteers, you can get into the neighborhood of 40 to 50 times the contribution, all benefiting people locally. The Youth Council is something that I brought up just before I announced I wasn't going to run again, and I'm really sorry to drop that on Vice Mayor-elect Lentz, but I'm very proud of her because she took over and managed to pull it together, and I think she's taking over in the coming year to be the commissioner who's the liaison to that group. Finally, before I was actually in office, Mr. Ralph Thomas came back a number of times, and I kept calling him once I heard a good idea, I didn't want to give up. But if he hadn't called repeatedly and kept trying, we wouldn't have SVRA here, for the possibility of that. And hopefully that'll turn into a good event. Hopefully it'll extend concourse and improve the impact of the island. If you don't know, that's supposed to be the vintage race at the airport. It'll be a lot of fun to watch from the sidelines, but it was a privilege to be here when it was approved. I promise I'll go a little faster. I want to thank some of the people that I really thought a lot of, some of the staff, including the city clerk, Carolyn Best, who's grown into her job, the deputy city clerk, and Kim Briley. Think a great deal of the city attorney and some of her advice, especially the school she went to. So if you're thinking of a law school, Stetson University is a great law school. I want to say how much I appreciate Marshall and Adrian. I think people don't always notice staff and how qualified they are. But that makes a huge difference when you start to change land development code or comp plan or go through a review of things that the general public might not understand. Having qualified staff makes a big difference and stabilizes the community. And I think that having commissioners here for 4 years, something that we talked about for 3 years, the entire time I was here, finally passed. So I guess the third time's the charm. I think that'll stabilize Fernandina, and I'm hoping that it'll stabilize the city manager's job. That's something that has been a problem for Fernandina for a long time. One of the things that I forgot to mention about the city attorney is that when I first came here, I don't know if you noticed the difference, but maybe it's just that we developed a little bit of a friendship, but she started to take positions and say, this is what I think you should do, rather than offering alternatives. That's whether it's trust or stability, or that I just got to know her and she started to share more. That meant a lot to me, and I think it meant a lot to the commission. If the city attorney is perceived as a strong attorney with a lot of credibility, we stay out of lawsuits. And contrary to popular belief, we didn't have as many lawsuits as previous commissions did. And a lot of that's because of the city attorney. Had some help behind the scenes, and Johnny's going to find out, I think the other commissioners know, our city lobbyist, Buddy Jacobs, does a lot of things for the city that sometimes people aren't aware of. Lynn Krieger, Rex Lester, and Lex Brest, can't talk, Lex Brest. If you say Lynn and Rex fast, it's not easy. But I remember meeting with Buddy when we first started to try to get funding for stormwater that was turned down. And maybe we'll get that in another year. But that means a lot. Getting $1 million towards stormwater or clarification of the drainage through Fort Clinch that saves millions of dollars in water treatment, because that makes a huge difference. He does things that people aren't aware of, and I think a lobbyist is important. I hope everyone in the commission and the public know how important that is in the future. I want to mention briefly Brian Teeple, and I hope that into the next year, every year you have a goal-setting meeting. And I hope if you don't get Brian to help and go through that, I know makes a huge, if you want to get that. Makes a huge difference if someone facilitates for the commission and helps you come up with a common list of goals, and then you have a good manager that reminds you of those goals all year long. So I think, to me, that was one of the nicest things about the beginning of this year. You can't get everything done, but to have a list to start with, at least you have a chance. I promise I only have a little bit more. I wanted to thank the advisory boards, because I didn't have an opportunity to write a proclamation or thank everyone in each and every advisory board. We tended to thank the special boards that were in place for just a little while, like the airport, thank you. But I think it's important that everyone realize how important those boards are. If you think about the Golf Advisory Board and some of the transitions, I think that it's very easy when you have volunteers to turn people off. I think it's important to go back and make a point of thanking them. Finally, in the last 2 years, the two people that I found most inspirational and were the biggest influence on my time as a commissioner and as a mayor. First, Mr. Bill Flynn, friends. Apparently libraries are sentimental. But he was persistent, he was criticized, he was incredibly patient and generous, and we have a library because of him and because of the Friends of the Library and because of the commission and the county and our willingness to let them help. I also want to thank someone who I didn't talk to very often, but I thought of as a friend in the commission, Ms. Arlene Philkoff. I thought a great deal. She said something on her way out that meant a lot to me. She basically said, like the people who are for something. And if you continue to think about commissioners and about your view of the city, try to build something better. Try not to stop things. It's important to be responsible, but always think about people who have ideas and want to build something. I think people run out of ideas when they only want to stop something and that's all they've got. They just run out. And finally, I just want to apologize if I've forgotten anyone. I want to thank all the commissioners for the time in the last 3 years, those of you who were here. Johnny, our politics are completely different, but I think having a diverse commission is what makes a commission good. If everyone thinks the same thing, there's no discussion, you don't have ideas, and the town stays, nothing changes for the better. And again, I just wanted to remind everyone that even if we don't agree, we all want the best for Fernandina. And I want to thank everyone in the audience and everyone that lives in Fernandina, the commission and the incoming manager for the privilege to serve. And I'll miss it. I'll miss it. Hopefully I'll come back to politics one day. But thank you very much.